Hello, my name is Martin Ward, and I'd like to give my presentation, Scaling Up COIL at a Research-Intensive University. I'm an Associate Professor of Chinese and Japanese Translation at the University of Leeds and also the Institutional Lead for Collaborative Online International Learning here at Leeds. In my presentation, I'd like to briefly present the limited data I've gathered on COIL in UKHE as a whole, and then proceed to talk about the work that I and other colleagues have been doing here at Leeds to scale up our work on collaborative online international learning, finally summarizing our approach. So I graduated from the University of Leeds in 1999 with a BA in Chinese and Japanese Studies, and then spent the following 16 years of my life overseas. I returned to teach at the University of Leeds in 2017. As an associate professor of Chinese and Japanese translation, I teach translation, obviously, and do research into this field as well. But I've also been leading on collaborative online international learning at Leeds since 2023. I thought I'd briefly mention how I got into COIL. In 2020, I established the East Asian Translation Pedagogy Advanced Network, which seeks to bring together academics at institutions around the world teaching the translation of East Asian languages. In other words, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. Through the contacts and network that I have established there, I began to build teaching collaborations. So I have been conducting translation COIL for Japanese at MA level since 2021 with Dr. Shani Tobias at Monash University in Melbourne. Twice a year, we bring our students together for a 2 to 3 week collaboration where the students work in remote teams on a translation project, presentation, and so on, which helps them to prepare for future work remotely in the field of translation, where translators often have to work in remote collaborative teams. I've also used COIL in Chinese translation as well, working with universities in China and also in Canada, and seeing the impact that COIL had on my students and the benefits that it had, I began to ask what is happening more widely in the UK and at my own institution with COIL. So looking around, looking at some data from COIL Connect that I've gathered over the last couple of years, and also from scouring the internet, I've put together a very patchy picture of the kind of general field of COIL in the UK. Now, this data may indeed be missing some institutions, for which I apologize, that is not intentional. But we can clearly see that Coventry are the pioneers in COIL in the UK, starting in 2014, some 11 years ago. We can see a number of institutions started using COIL around 2020 from the pandemic and onwards, but overall the scale of COIL is not very significant at all. So it has been greatly underemployed in higher education across the UK. It's also been greatly underemployed in my own institution to date as well, since we did not have traditionally any particular commitment to investing in or supporting COIL. There are 2 other COIL modules that have been running since around 2021 in neuroscience and in business. These are full-length COIL modules, but those were outliers. Some more recent work has been done to develop COILs, and I will talk about that in just a moment. Here at Leeds, 30% of our students experience mobility overseas during their program, but the other 70% do not. And I looked at this and thought about our institutional international strategy, where we say that we seek to create a curriculum across all study levels that is internationally relevant and provides a broad range of inclusive global study and flexible mobility opportunities. We also seek to develop excellent graduates who, as engaged global citizens, will be well equipped to make a positive difference in the world. It was clear to me that COIL could enable us to provide such opportunities for a broad range of students, in that it is inclusive, doesn't cost the students any extra money, and can be applied in a variety of disciplines. We've also been going through a curriculum renewal process, which makes this a ripe time for looking at innovative pedagogies within our disciplines. So as COIL lead at Leeds over the last couple of years, there are a few different things that I have been working on. The first was with other colleagues to research into the perceived barriers of COIL at Leeds, perceived by academics who've done COIL, perceived by academics who haven't done COIL. What is it that would be needed at this particular institution to get COIL up and running effectively? We've also researched the student voice to determine what is the student perspective on internationalization at home, how it can contribute to enriching their own curriculum, and also COIL in particular. So I set out in 2023 to lobby the senior leadership and got support for workload to be able to start scaling up COIL at Leeds. Having found that institutional fit, I've said pain points here, but the fit with the international and student education strategies. I conducted meetings with colleagues who have done COIL to learn from their practice, particularly where that practice has taken place at Leeds. I've continually undertaken CPD since the outset in order to better equip myself to be able to support and equip other colleagues as well. So that has involved training with an overseas institution, continually attending webinars online, of course, and continually conducting research into those barriers and the impact of the activities that we've been doing. Last year in June, we conducted the first ever COIL showcase at Leeds, which brought together more than 60 colleagues to learn about the COILs that are already running and those that are emerging or currently being developed, with the aim of inspiring more colleagues to explore COIL within their own subject areas. It's provided visibility for those who are already doing COIL and provided inspiration for others. We've also had support across the various range of excellent professional services through quality assurance, digital education, and the international office. Fundamentally, we've been looking to find a local definition or a local approach to COIL because every institution needs to work out what approach works best in their institution. I've worked to develop an internal page, a resource page for gathering and sharing resources, so case studies of COIL here at Leeds, guidance for colleagues before we had the workshops up and running, a clear sense for colleagues who it is they can reach out to if they have questions about COIL. So I've made myself available for consultation and discussing how colleagues can implement COIL in their own local areas. I've developed a series of workshops, an asynchronous set of resources to get people going, a couple of in-person workshops to help them begin to really build that COIL plan, and then there's a post-COIL critical reflective space. I've been working with leaders of the various faculties in the international space to help to ensure that we have COIL champions within each faculty and within my own faculty and another faculty, working with directors of student education to really try to sow the seeds of COIL as deep as possible. Provided one-on-one consultations for anybody who would like to explore COIL in their own subject area and sought to coordinate the contributions from the various stakeholders across the institution. I've presented to external partners at our International Partners Conference. I've been presenting our work at external conferences and doing a lot of networking with our strategic partner institutions, matchmaking, so to speak, to try to do anything that will help to get COIL collaborations going between Leeds and our partners and key partner institutions. In summary, this approach has been built, first of all, on research and fact-finding to find the institutional fit and make a compelling argument to present to the senior leadership. Sometimes it's discussed whether COIL should be implemented bottom up or top down. Here at Leeds, it seems to have been more appropriate to do a middle up, middle down, middle out approach. In other words, lobbying senior leadership, then encouraging academic colleagues across the board. It's not really down because they're not below me, but encouraging academic colleagues across the institution and also reaching out to our international partners to try to generate collaborations in the COIL space. So it's been really important to have a good collaboration and communication between myself as academic lead and our professional service experts to get this approach of dream big, build deep, be flexible, be available to have to bear fruit. So the big dream is that one day every student at Leeds would have a COIL opportunity. But that won't happen overnight. It may take a very, very long time. We need to build deep, make sure the resources are there, but be flexible in what we term as the definition of COIL, not requiring it to be full-length COIL modules, not saying it has to be a minimum of 4 or 5 weeks, but looking at where we can encourage meaningful, impactful collaborations in student education, and also being available, so providing that support and those consultations. We've looked to develop a roadmap of resources to go from zero to COIL. You may be wondering what the take-up has been like. Well, I'm happy to say that across the institution, we have interest in every faculty. COILs are being developed in every single faculty. Even in my own faculty recently, we had an event where 16 colleagues looking at developing COIL attended. So you can see the interest has been significant. Thank you very much for listening. I now bring my presentation to a close.